Hey there, and welcome to Moving the Needle, the podcast exclusively for med spas. I'm your host, Chris Fink. In these episodes, we'll be diving into real stories and proven strategies and powerful moves that can grow your med spa, whether you're just launching or scaling past seven figures. This podcast is your go to guide for growth, branding, and patient acquisition. Here, we'll cut through the fluff. Real talk, real tactics, real world experience, and the fuel you need to move the needle further, faster. Let's get started. I'd like to take just a moment and this opportunity to thank our sponsors for this episode. We're sponsored this episode by Fanet Digital Marketing. Fanet is a generalist digital marketing agency, and their whole motto is entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs. They love working with small local service businesses and home service contractors. So if you are not a med spa, or you know somebody who could benefit from those types of services, we encourage you to follow up and investigate Fanet. They're located at Fanet, that's FANNIT.com. Again, that's Fanet Digital Marketing Services, entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs. I just want to start with a question. What makes your med spa unforgettable? Is it your results? Is it your vibe? Is it your story? Is it the experience? What is it that sets you apart from all the other med spas that are popping up on every block in most major cities in the US? In this episode of Moving the Needle, I'm going to sit down with Candace Thomas. Candace is a powerhouse. She's a partner at Bespoke Communications. And we're going to talk about how med spas can stand out in the noisy marketplace by discovering and owning their unique brand bond with their clients. From building authentic messaging to creating emotional resonance and avoiding all the generic branding traps, this episode will help you unlock the heart of your business. All right, well, let's get started. With me today is Candace Thomas of Bespoke Communications. Candace, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on the show today. I think there's something that, as you know, the med spa agency, we work exclusively with med spas, but I work with digital marketing of med spas. That's what I drive. And it's really like your role in the process of establishing a business. I can't do my job well unless you've already done yours, right? And you have good branding in place. Like I can't carry the message forward unless it's clear. So I know how to do SEO and PPC and all those things, but what I don't have a good handle on is like the crazy awesome work that you do. Like I've seen some of the brands that you work with and they're just like unforgettable. And that's what makes a business succeed, is driving that brand. Tell us a little bit about your journey and like how you got where you're at and why this is a passion place for you.
Yeah, well, it certainly is a passion place. And I do have to just start by discrediting a little bit of what you said, because I do think a lot of the beautiful work that we're able to do is to understand the SEO that you are an expert in. And I do think one of the keys to branding is not to be so lasered in on just one aspect of your marketing and only focus there. It's so important to take a step back, understand all of the different aspects, the different channels, the different messages, the look, the feel, the in-person experience, the online experience. You have to think about all of that to truly create a brand that is going to succeed. So,
Yeah.
but yes, my passion is really bringing brands to life. And I have a background in marketing. I worked both in strategy and consulting in my past. One of my favorite things that I like to do, coming from the world of a bigger agency, is to bring that big thinking to small to mid-sized businesses, to entrepreneurs, to people who are really starting what their passion is, and helping bring that type of strategic thinking to their brands and help them succeed just as much as any of these super large household name brands are. I really, really love seeing people's dreams come true in that same way, that it doesn't matter how big your brand is and how household name it could be. You could be a local med spa in a certain town, and you could have that same kind of success by using those same strategies.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And well, like I've always been a proponent of small business. Like I would, after having been part of larger, big, you know, ventures, the personal fulfillment for me is much greater working with a small business and helping them transition from startup and scaling into 7 figures into multi 7 figures, and helping them grow and realize that and go from, just an idea, just the spark,
100%.
and to the point where somebody has realized that dream and they're living their best life. And that, that's amazing. So, well, thinking about the branding, in med spas specifically, like we were just talking about how many there are out there, right? And how
Yes.
it blew up. And now what I'm seeing in the industry anyways, is that a lot of them are struggling, and there's med spas for the first time ever starting to fold and close because it's overly saturated with generic voicing.
Mhm.
And you have all these spas and they're like, well, if I have a cool logo with great colors and people love me, but
Mhm.
that's a hope. That's not a strategy.
Right.
And, to be successful in business, really, you have to disassociate a little bit and take some of those emotions out and get really clinical for just a hard second when you're doing your analytics, and then figure out how to make those emotions translate. So, but why do you think there's so many of these spas and and businesses in general, but why do they just blend together? Like, what's missing in branding that makes them appear generic?
A lot of it is that they're not identifying from the very beginning what is unique and special about them and who their customer is and what their pain point is. If you can bridge that gap and find a solution for them that is very specifically tailored to whatever it is, their need, their pain point, their desire for a service, especially in the service, this applies to a product-based business as well. But if you can understand what your customer, what your patient, your client, whatever it is that you're going to call the person who, subscribes or purchases your services, if you can figure out what it is that they truly, truly need, understand what you offer, and then find the way to communicate with them in a way that is about them and solving whatever challenge, need, or desire that they have. It's really important not to just be another service on the block offering the same list of services or products, because what happens then is consumers are super savvy these days, and they can price shop, they can do their research. And if everything looks the same from med spa A to med spa B all the way down the list, they're going to say, I'm going to get the same service, product, application. Why am I going to go here over here when this price point is going to be better? And
Yeah.
it's really important not to get in that kind of transactional relationship with your patients, customers, clients. Again, this really applies to all industries, but specifically in med spas where it is such a busy space. You really have to stand out, and it can't just be about the pricing, because it is such a high touch service. It's so important that you have that relationship that is built on an emotional connection, not a transactional one.
That makes me think, like what you're saying with the price points, it winds up, so many practices I talk to, they ask me like, how did I get embroiled in this Groupon culture where it's, where everybody's coming in price shopping, everybody's coming in price shopping. It's a race to the bottom of pricing, which means you have compressed margins. And that culture, once you're firmly entrenched in it, it's really tough to get back out of. And I think what I hear you saying there is that a lot of it is just like over relying on aesthetics without substance.
Correct.
And with some of like the presentation, it's just like copy paste branding, like, having the same fonts, the same tone, the same service list, the same items on there. Like if there's no emotional anchor to bring somebody back into that. And then also, I think what you said earlier too is about understanding what you're bringing to the patient. Like if you're not clearly communicating a reason behind or beyond the treatment of what you're providing. Like there has to be something that goes beyond that. And you have to share what that is. Like the ultimate outcome, the end outcome. The treatment is a step towards outcome.
100%. It's a journey. It's truly a journey that you want to establish that you're going to be their guide and partner throughout it. So you understand what their long-term goals are. And then you as the expert, the products that you have and the application of them are just the tools that you're going to use. But if you can really brand yourself and create that position that you are going to find the best products for this person, the best timing, the best cadence, then you become a guide. You become so much more than just a product. Yes, of course, I could walk down the street and get Botox here, Botox here, Botox here. But what does that mean for me in 2 years? What does that mean for me at my particular age, my particular bone structure, my particular skin laxity? What does that mean for me? How are we going to address this in 6 months, in 12 months, in 24 months? And really establishing that authority in a sense of being a leader in applying the products that you have and understanding your clinical background, as well as having a true appreciation for what your particular patient is looking for. Because I think that's important too, is it has to be highly, highly personalized. You don't want to, walk in somewhere and just get a kind of generic application. Right. And then suddenly a lot of people start to look the same. You want to be able to feel heard of what your aesthetic goals are and have a customized partner and leader who's going to make sure that that happens. And that takes relationships. And in order to even get to that point, right, where you get to establish this relationship, you have to have a branding package, messaging, visual. You have to make sure that you are advertising enough so that the awareness of your particular location is out there so people know that you're a choice. Right. That has to all be so spot on, unique, and really authentic to who you are, so that when somebody does walk in the door, they feel that. They feel, oh, I've been watching you on Instagram. We get a lot of this in the aesthetic world. There's a lot of watch and see kind of lurkers who are watching before and afters, seeing what kind of specials they're offering. When somebody finally makes that decision, I'm going to go in and I'm going to see this particular person for this product or this service, they want it to feel like what they've been watching and seeing. They don't want to have a mix match of what the advertising and marketing was with the real experience.
Yeah. So what you're saying there is that they have kind of an emotional bond before they even walk in.
100%.
And so, yeah. And you've mentioned to me emotional bonding before and like how to, foster that. So what exactly is for those that haven't thought about it, and I haven't thought about it really clearly, but I mean, how would you break down like what an emotional bonding strategy looks like, and how can a med spa practice or any business uncover theirs?
So it's absolutely critical that they understand who they are authentically, truly who you are. Are you going to be the clinician? What is your approach? What is your personality? Are you going to be a very much by the book? This is the way the treatment works, and kind of a little bit more of that clinical style that when you walk in, there's a cleanliness and also a coldness, but some people really like that. That's what they're looking for. Sure. Or are you going to have this kind of girl next door, very approachable, very come as you are. We're going to make sure that you look like you. We're not going to do any sort of overfilling or, over tightening. Or are you going to be kind of somewhere in the middle? But that's really important from the very beginning to establish what your personality is as a brand. And that can only be authentically communicated and held up over time if it actually is your personality and your approach. So it's super important to get honest with yourself. You don't want to create a super white iPhone Apple Store experience. If you're going to be girl next door, come on and get comfortable. That's
Right.
going to fit really well with like a modern, sleek, chic, clinical more experience. If you want people to feel like they're walking into someone who has that level of comfort, you're going to want your visual branding. So your logo, your color palette, even the fonts that you choose can really communicate a lot about who you are. But then it's your messaging, because a logo is not a brand, right? It's
Right.
it's just one piece. It's a very important piece of it, but it
Right.
is not a brand. That messaging is so important. So what are the words that you're using? What is even the cadence of how you're speaking? If you're doing videos, what is that? Do I feel approachable? I would like to think that everyone should have a place, and there's truly enough room for everyone who's doing it right. If you try to be all things to all people and try to go outside of your own comfort zone or personality, you're really becoming nothing to everyone. And
Right.
so to really feel confident and comfortable in who you are, and we love that process working with our clients. We really do. Whether we're helping a brand start from scratch, that's a really big part of the work that we do, is really understanding the approach, the personality, the uniqueness. We also love doing rebrands. And I think it's important, if you're struggling in your business, that you take that time to reach out to somebody who is going to not just apply kind of a generic templated batched set of content that has worked for others to you as well. It's to really take that pause and understand, how am I going to emotionally connect with my patients? It's by understanding where my emotional connection starts.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about the rebrand. I have a question. I'm going to come back to it a little bit
Okay.
later in the show, but
Okay.
I have a question
I'll keep
about that. So,
listening.
but what I'm taking away from this is that you really have to do, like, really identify your brand archetype,
Mhm.
and then figure out how to put bumpers on that lane and stay within it.
Mhm.
Because I think I've been guilty of this many times. I'm like, oh no, I can do that too. Yeah, I can do that too. I can be the guy next door. I look good in jeans and a flannel. I look good in shorts and a t-shirt. I look good in my shirt and vest. Like, I can wear all these things out. But which one is me, and which is the image that I want to portray to the people that I'm trying to get to do business with me? Well, there has to be some consistency to that. So yeah, I think a lot of that, and catching that, like, are you the luxury escape? Are you the girl next door expert? Are you the clinical specialist? Like, is my injector my therapist? Like, what's the vibe you're going for? So, and I mean, my injector is my therapist. Like, I tell them all.
100%. And there are so many people who are looking for that experience.
Yeah,
So if you can really own that and authentically deliver on that experience for your patients, that's fantastic. If that is not your personality and you don't want to know about their dog surgery or their third graders, recorder concert, don't project that, because
yeah,
there's going to be a mismatch in the office, in the experience, and it's not going to feel authentic. And therefore you're not going to have that repeat business. It's so important to understand the kind of cycle. The awareness is so important to get people to your place. But once you have patients who like the services they're getting, keeping them and getting their recommendations to their friends and family is going to be so much easier to grow your business than to constantly be starting back at the top with awareness and trying to get the word out that you're a spa. If you can really cultivate the customers, patients, clients, whatever it is, whatever industry you're in. Here we're talking med spa. So your patients, if you can cultivate those relationships, that is going to be such a quicker path to growth for you than if they're not getting that authentic experience with you.
right. Yeah. So if I'm thinking about like the brand trap, like
Mhm.
how to avoid sounding like every other med spa, because there is some consistency. Like a lot of them might do body contouring, and some of them and others won't. Some will do just the softer side of aesthetics and not do injectables, for example.
Mhm.
It'd be like a skincare clinic, or you might have the GLP-1s integrated. But with that overlap in most of those services being fairly consistent in the industry, how do you not sound like everybody else? And what are some signs that you've come across that says that a practice is in generic mode, and how do they course correct?
Mhm, mhm. It's really important that you don't go into that generic mode, and that's easy to do if you're constantly looking outwards at your competition, we'll say, or we like to say it's more of the community landscape, because it really changes your approach to what you're offering if you're always thinking about what the competition is doing, what the competition is doing. What if you don't think of yourself as competitors and instead you really lean in to what is about you? You really focus in on what your people are looking for and what you have to offer. That is what's going to make it really special and stand out. Um, we like to look at the community landscape because what we like to understand is who else is out there and what are they offering? What is their value proposition? What is their price point? What is the audience that they're looking to attract? What type of patient are they looking for? Great. What are you looking for? There might be some crossover, of course, everything's
Sure.
going to have a little bit, but lean into that. Lean into this. I think polarizing clarity would be a way to say that.
Yeah.
You really want to make sure that you're not watering it down. That happens when you're trying to please everyone, or especially if you're having this branding by committee. Be careful of that. Make sure you kind of stay true to your organizing principles, your growth principles, and revisit those. Revisit those often. See what's working and see what's not. One of the best ways that we really say that you can sound like yourself and market as yourself and not get stuck in this brand trap of, trying to do what everybody else is doing is to listen to what your patients are saying.
Yeah.
Who are your top patients? Who are your ride or die patients? Talk to them. They'll be honored. We love to do research for our clients. That's one of the first things that we do. We want to talk to everybody who works there. We want to talk to patients. We even want to talk to, maybe some people who were there and left for somewhere else. We want to understand what that is. And we want to find what that point of clarity is that really brings your particular brand vision and nourish that,
Yeah.
and really make sure that we hone in there because that's something you can truly own too, right? That's about you.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I think in my experience, this is where like being able to separate a little bit of the emotion and the passion for your business and the drive has to be tempered a little bit with some objectivity, because when you start asking those questions, when you hear an answer you don't like, so many get defensive and they're like, oh, that's BS. That's not true. We didn't talk that way. We
Mhm.
didn't make you feel that way, because it's not what they want to project. And so sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle to open your mind and say, no, we didn't. There's value in this lesson. Like growth comes on
Right.
the other side of conflict.
100%.
And if there is no conflict and everybody's just telling you what you want to hear to make you feel like you're doing the best job ever, but you're not growing, then you're not listening to somebody. And yeah, so I love that. I love that point. So when you figure out like how to get past like using all that, water down and and you really start drilling into your messaging,
Mhm.
then how do you take the branding and the messaging and introduce that into your marketing strategy?
Mhm. So we like to really dig into those patient, again, customer client insights. We like to hear what people are saying about you and turn that language back. Instead of it being a one-way conversation. Here is what we're offering. Here's the price of what we're offering, and just blasting it out. We like to actually take the conversation from the patient and what they're saying, what they're needing, what they're looking for, and make that the topic of conversation. Obviously, reviews are fantastic to utilize and to, as you were just saying, learn from, right? But what if there's a way, if instead of just saying, oh, we got a 5-star review, that was fantastic, look, our patients love us. What if instead, if we take that 5-star review and we say, okay, let's back up and think about, how did we get here? Let's think about what led us to this 5-star review. Talk to the patient. Why did you come in? What about what you saw or read made you interested to book your appointment? Listen to that. So when you came in and you first met with your clinician, what was your conversation like? What were you nervous about? What were you excited about? What kind of questions did you ask there? Capture that. Capture those questions and put those back out. Have you ever tried Botox before? You might have some concerns about, I'm going to give you a bad example, but something that actually happened to me once is I had a spocked brow. And that's something that people who experience with different types of injections can have. And I had one brow that looked like that. When they say Spock, it's because of, you know, and Star Trek, sorry.
I remember.
Don't get me going on my analogies here. I'm going to be wrong on it. And so it was really hard for me. And then I was afraid. I was afraid about that. And then once I understood and I learned more, and I met with a new injector, and she explained my unique anatomy and why that can happen, and where that, I was hooked. It wasn't just, oh yeah, that can sometimes happen. It really made me feel heard. It addressed my exact concerns. And then there was a trust that was built. And so I was slowly able to come back into that world of getting Botox on a regular routine without the fear that I had. That could have been an opportunity for the original injector that I had to course correct. But instead, the way that particular conflict was handled was, it was a turnoff for me. And that's my own unique experience. And so we like to think about that for all of your patients. If it was a 1-star review, let's just say you got a doozy. Right. Let's also back all the way up and look at every stage of that journey. What drew them to you, and how did you somehow miss the mark? Because there's so much opportunity to have miscommunication in every brand, in every industry. It's really how you manage that miscommunication. We're in the world of human services everywhere here.
Right.
And if you can connect as a human and talk through what that challenge is, and put together some steps of how you're going to move forward with change and stick to it, it's likely that you're going to have an even more loyal patient than if you wouldn't have. So it's really important to understand what your patients are saying about you, and then convert that into your messaging. Create the patient journey digitally, and use your exact experiences. Let people see what that journey is like. Let that inform your messaging.
Yeah. So then, and you can take that messaging and then insert that messaging into the channels, the website copy, your Instagram captions, where you're not giving necessarily the generic, like, little blurbs, but you're giving value and identity to those. And then, reflecting your personality through your Google business page, your Facebook efforts, your email campaigns, your database reactivation, like all those things. If you can have that messaging clear and learn from those experiences, how the audience is viewing you and thinking about you, and then put that into those channels, then that's going to give, I think, slightly tailored to each channel and the audience of those channels, but a consistent brand experience.
A consistent brand experience, exactly. You really do want to make sure that you're customizing your message by channel. Because that is all, even if you have the best messaging, if you're just now copying, pasting, duplicating it, and blasting it out everywhere, that feels, even if your patient isn't quite savvy enough to understand that what's happening, it feels a little generic too. It feels, even maybe a little lazy in a sense. If you can really take the time to understand, okay, on Instagram, I can actually have a conversation. I can record a video. I can talk about this. On my Google page, maybe it's going to be a little bit different, because when people are going and looking at my reviews there, it's going to be a different experience of what they're looking for in that language. Email, blog content, fabulous for long form case study kind of stories. And also, that's so great for your SEO. As you know, and frankly, you're the expert here, you don't just want to set it and forget it with your website. And that is such an easy thing for people to do. Their website's up and now they're going to focus on their social messaging. It's really important to still be adding new findable content on your website. And use your social as a great tool to send people there. Start the story in your captions. Start the story in your emails, and encourage people to come back to your site to read more about it. Awesome. Optimizing all the places that you live.
Yeah, all of them. So I wanted to do like a quick little brand therapy, because you talked about rebranding, right? And wondering if you were like coming in as like a brand therapist, right? You're taking a business, and that's kind of what you do. You do brand therapy or brand creation, which puts you in such a unique place to speak to both any stage in this journey for a business. So if I had a practice that had most of the right things, right? They had a great facility, a gorgeous space. They had the core services, right? They had their toxes, their fillers, their facials, their lasers, right? But they were struggling with having inconsistent messaging, or random ads. They're boosting posts instead of running a strategic campaign. They have low retention, right? So they're losing patients after, say, 2 or 3 visits, right? They come in and then they get disenfranchised and they move on for whatever reason. Could be experience or pricing or whatever. If you had a practice like that come to you in 5 minutes or less, what would you tell them for brand therapy? Just here's the first things to do.
The first things to do is I would look at everything they're putting out there, and I would make sure that the consistency is absolute key. In fact, I might even pull some, especially if there's ads that are not matching the vibe of what their space is. You're describing kind of a gorgeous space that has an inviting feel, right? I would want to make sure that I would look at every piece of digital marketing that is going out there and say, does this match what it feels like to walk in the door? And I would look at whatever words are being used on those ads, on those posts. If there's emails that are going on, does this sound like what the injector says? I would literally read it and speak to the injector. It's so important that there is the match of both visual and verbal connection in your brand. Otherwise, it just creates confusion. And what's interesting is there's too much competition out there for you to expect your patients to figure out what you're about. It shouldn't be on them to say, oh, this looks like a gorgeous space, but they're talking about all these like 2-for-1 specials. So is this truly a luxury experience, or is this kind of a just numbers? We're just turning patients in or out, or am I going to get this really dedicated experience? I would look at all of that 100%. I would also want to speak to the patients who are staying and some of them who have left. And I'd want to understand what that experience was like, because there is a disconnect somewhere. Mm-hmm. If you're going to lose somebody on price, that's one thing. If you can't change your pricing, or you don't want to change your pricing. But then you have to figure out what your value is beyond the price. And you have to communicate that value. So if it's about the experience, if it's about the length of your appointment, if it's about the skill and experience of your injector, then no longer should price truly be a consideration. If you are putting that against, $11 a unit Botox, you want to not get into that conversation of a transaction.
Right.
And the more that you can do to stay away from a transactional relationship with your patients, the better.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do have a fun little section that I want to do, but before we get to that,
Okay.
it looks like we have a few questions coming in. Do you have time to take a few of them?
I do.
Awesome. So here's one that was put out there. It's like, we're talking about unique brands. How do I actually figure out what makes my brand unique when I feel like we offer the same things as everyone else?
Extremely fair question. And I am super happy to hear that, because kind of understanding, yes, I am entering or I'm in a cluttered market, to put it lightly. So how am I going to stand out? You're going to do that with your personality. And
yeah, and I think you actually just answered this. This might have come in before, because you were like, just listen and ask people,
yes.
and you'll get a lot of this. That'll help you figure it out.
And that's where, of course, your logo and your colors and your fonts and all of those beautiful parts of a brand are going to help communicate what that personality is. That's really where your words are going to be. And that's where we're going to want you to show up. We're going to want you as the owner, the lead injector. We're going to want to see your team, and we're going to want to see some authentic personality. That's not saying we're going to ask you guys to come do a coordinated dance. Now, if you're known for your coordinated dances and that's 100% in line with your personality, let's do it. Right. But that should not, chasing those trends should not be what you're looking for if you're trying to create those authentic experiences. Now, if you have a huge fan base and people love you and you have this kind of wild and, irreverent personality and you're known to break into song or dance, let's do it. If that matches you, personally, I love it if it makes sense. I've seen it not make sense, and you almost feel bad for somebody who's chasing a trend. Don't chase trends. Figure out who you are, your personality, and listen to your patients. Tell that.
Lean into that. Yeah, lean into that. Yeah, and this actually. So, can my spa rebrand without confusing or losing existing loyal clients?
Yes, absolutely. When we talk about rebranding, it is often a combination of a visual refresh combined with a new experience. A visual refresh for the sake of a visual refresh, you kind of want to understand why you're going to do that. Let's say that you have some new services you're offering. You're moving into a new office. You have recently brought on some new team members, some really fantastic, experienced injectors and estheticians. There's a cause then for starting a new conversation. What is the purpose of wanting to rebrand? If there isn't a reason and you're just kind of bored with your old logo, that could maybe create a little confusion. But with the right team that can help you find the strategy for it, absolutely. Brand recognition is super important, and you would never want to get too far, especially if you're super successful. You want that evolution to be subtle and you want it to be meaningful. And just a new color palette or a new icon is not going to make the connection with your patient that you hope it will. There needs to be a story and a reason and a value for your patient to really go through with that rebrand.
Yeah. Here's a really good one. I was scrolling down a little bit. So this one here asks, if my med spa has multiple personalities, like, and like some clients see us as high end, others see us as friendly or casual, and the injectors have those personalities. So, and that's common, right? In a med spa, like I think of that, like each injector has their following too within that practice following.
100%.
But from the med spa, so they're asking, how do I know which identity to lean into for the practice as a whole?
I love this question so much, because what family doesn't have all the personalities that you could ever imagine? But now what we need to do is we need to figure out what the practice's personality is. And that's kind of the parent personality. And it might even be, what are you, we have this space. Your space is going to be consistent. You're going to talk about that. You're going to have your pricing that would always be consistent. And you're going to have the overall satisfaction of your patients with their process. So to kind of lean into what is consistent across everyone, that is going to be the overall personality of your practice. Now you get to have fun, because everybody has a crazy aunt and a stodgy old uncle.
Right.
That's where you want to lean into the individual personality, and you want to have fun with that. You know, here at our practice, we have different experiences for you. So we want to get to know you and what is going to be the best match for you, and really partner those people together.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
love that question though. That's welcome to the world, right? You're never, and that also becomes a cultural, that becomes a culture of the practice you're building. So if you are the owner of a med spa, you might want to think about that. Every person that you bring in to your company is now going to be speaking for the brand. And so if that's something that you can really hire towards, a culture that you have decided you want to have, that is going to help that more than anything. But even so, there's always going to be different personalities. And if you can find the commonality and then have fun with what the differences are, you're going to show up really authentic.
Yeah, and what you just said actually leads, so it's almost like this part's scripted, because it and it isn't. But the next question was, how can I get my team on board with the brand messaging so it's consistent from the front desk to the treatment room, regardless of the provider, when you have this multiple, you've got all these personalities. So if this would be, not building a team, but trying to course correct an existing team.
Absolutely.
And dial in the branding and make sure that it stays consistent. What are some tactics that you might encourage a practice to leverage with their existing team?
100%, you're going to want to have your team meetings are going to have more than just the business of the day. We're not just going to talk about how many appointments we have, who's on this shift, who's on that shift. Bringing the culture to the core of your meetings and your team meetings is what is going to really make sure that happens. Everybody has to be on board. If somebody is not on board with your team's culture, they're not going to be a good fit, and they are going to have an effect that you're not looking for. So this should be exciting. This should be fun. This should be the community within your own company, and everyone is on board and everyone is excited for it. So really prioritizing your culture, prioritizing your messaging. Scripting, of course, can be used, but you want to be careful with that. You really don't want people to be overly scripted, because your patients will start to notice if it doesn't sound like something they're saying feels authentic. So do some role play. Let's talk about it. Let's say somebody says this. This is also a fantastic place to use print. And we've been talking a lot about digital because we do a ton of digital work, but we also do a lot of print design, and really clean, on brand, both visually and messaged print pieces are super important. So if there's a question that, maybe that particular injector is like, you know what, thank you for asking that question. We actually have something here that you can use as a reference point. And that can be a tool. Empower your team, get them on board and get them excited. Everyone is going to see the growth from that. Your patients, your customers, your clients, they can feel your company culture. And that is something that is really intangible, yet really, really powerful.
Yeah, that's gold. And, culture, like everybody, it's a buzzword of ever since 2000 is like our company culture. And so many places talk about it, but not everybody can effectively live it and realize it's not a just during the meetings or just with the patient or just when I'm talking on the phone. It is an all day, everything. Like that has to be your personality, like who your core makeup is
Yes.
as a business.
Yes.
All right. I want to have some fun with Candace.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This is my little glow up round. So just quick off the top responses. All right.
Okay. Okay.
What is the favorite med spa treatment that you swear by?
Botox.
Okay. TikTok or Instagram?
Instagram.
AI tool that you cannot live without any longer?
Ooh, that's tough because we're really leaning into AI and figuring out how it can optimize the work that we're doing, make it even better, more efficient. So we're really starting to learn. I would say note-taking apps that really capture the meetings that we're in so that we can stay present and have these fantastic collated notes at the end. I think that's been really fantastic for us as a company.
Do you have a favorite platform so far?
Not yet. We're still trying a couple. I am happy to take suggestions though.
I've had a lot of luck with Fathom.
Fathom. Okay.
Yeah. I like it that it's
right now. I'm going to write that down. What if I had Fathom going? We wouldn't even have to do that. There's it in practice.
Right there. It is. What's your go-to coffee order?
So I have jumped on the mushroom coffee bandwagon and I absolutely love it. So I am a make coffee at home. I make a mushroom coffee and I use oat milk. If I am out and about and I'm picking up a coffee, I love an oat milk latte.
Awesome. What is one marketing trend that you think should die and disappear forever?
The scare tactic, scarcity complex headline, going out of business, last chance. We're sorry to have to tell you this, but, and as soon as you dial down, that's not what's happening at all.
Right. It's the final tour.
It's not, it's just that kind of, I understand because it does catch your attention. It catches mine. And the second I realize that I've been kind of duped, I'm like, off with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your guilty pleasure show?
Oh my gosh. Well, what isn't my guilty pleasure show? I love murder. I love spy shows. I love shows about cults. I really enjoy binging shows that have, all their episodes out. I like to get really into something. I'm not a channel switcher, hop around. I like to dig in and really lean into a show. Just finished season 3 of White Lotus. Huge fan. And that at this current point is what I'm still thinking about. I'm still thinking about all those characters.
Nice. That's great. Well, thank you for that. So yeah, this episode might be one of the most foundationally important episodes that we have or will do, because it's so much about the identity of a business and how to prepare themselves to move forward. And tactics, strategies can come, go, evolve, change, be modified, but brand is what truly connects a business to their clientele. So now, if you're listening and you want to go deeper on this with Candace and actually really investigate what it is to improve or develop your brand to its maximum, she's the real deal. Candace, where can our listeners find you?
Yes, I would love to have more conversations. This was super exciting. I'm so glad you had me on. This is what I'm passionate about. I love talking about. Finding the path to growth for our clients is what gets us up every day. So I would love to continue the conversation. You can find us online at bespokecom.com. That is BSPKCOMM.com. And we're the same handle on Instagram.
Awesome. I'll make sure to put those in the show notes as well. Yes. So any listeners or viewers can see that. And Candace, thank you so much for being on. As always, if you're ready to scale your med spa with clarity and confidence, hit us up at the Med Spa Agency. And until the next time, keep showing up, keep standing out, and keep moving the needle further, faster.